הפעם איתנו אורחת יקרה במיוחד, והיא הליידי אנבל ויידנפלד, שהייתה בת זוגו של רובינשטיין בערוב ימיו. התוכנית כמובן היא על הפסנתרן ארתור רובינשטיין. שלום אנבל.
שלום, אריק.
Tell me, is it true that he was nervous before concerts?
He was extremely nervous.
I can't believe it.
But I tell you, this was not the nervousness, this was not stage fright. Because the moment he would come out, before he played, and he felt the contact of the public, he would be fine. But all day beforehand, he would be very concentrated, very much removed, as though he were on another planet. And this came from an enormous sense of responsibility for his public, whom he felt were his best friends, who were coming to listen to him when they could be doing lots of other things. And also to the composers, he felt a deep, heavy responsibility towards the composers.
So if he was nervous, what
Yes.
would he do?
Well, he would try everything. He would try eating, not eating, sleeping, not sleeping. He would do his little five-finger exercises on a table, not on the piano. And very often the days when he was in fact had a delayed flight and there would be fog and everything would go wrong would be the days that he would feel happiest on the platform. But also the first thing that he would be nervous about would be the piano. So the first thing everywhere he arrived would be to try the piano. If he liked it, he would make a note of the number and remember it for next time. And if he didn't, this would just make him feel worse, I'm afraid. Yes.
You know, in Hebrew, we have a very funny word, התרגשות, להתרגש, which means being nervous in a positive and in a negative way.
Yes, yes.
And I remember him going on stage, and he was so well poised,
Yes.
like the king, like
Yes.
the emperor.
His nervousness was 100% positive. It didn't paralyze him in any way, on the contrary. And the contrast between the hell that he would go through during the day and then the feeling of the public. You know, he had this wonderful rapport with the public that even before he sat down, he was fine because they were his friends. Yes.
And we would like to see now his Russian friends in
Right.
Bolshoi Zal,
Yes.
and he will play for us a Chopin etude.
The conservatoire, actually, this was the conservatory in
Yeah,
Moscow.
the Bolshoi of the
Yes,
conservatory.
yes, yes, absolutely.
Was he superstitious?
He was quite superstitious. In fact, I learned from him a few superstitions. You must never put a hat on the bed.
Okay.
And I remember once we were packing and the housekeeper put all the hats out on the bed without knowing this. We were horrified. But yes, he was a bit superstitious. Yes.
So especially don't put a hat on the bed before a
Right.
concert.
Especially not before a concert, yes.
But when you are packing?
Well, you have to put the hat somewhere else, I'm afraid. Yes.
Not on the bed.
Not on the bed. Not on the bed.
We have here a box, the complete Chopin,
Yes.
excluding.
Well, he never did the studies, unfortunately. He did
Why?
a few studies, but he never felt, well, these were the things that he felt he should have worked. One of the regrets in his life was that he didn't work more, and he always felt the studies, and he really never did the complete studies. He did about 3 or 4, and that's why we're very lucky to have that Russian one, because he never recorded it.
And we are going to hear another study, this
Yes.
time presto con fuoco, because
Yes.
the study we heard is more music than a study.
That's right.
But the next one is a real one.
Yes.
And what a pity, these wonderful books. How many CDs? I can see 11.
Yeah.
The complete Chopin, excluding the studies, but still few of them
A few of them.
survive.
Yes. And this was a favorite encore of his, too, this one.
Yeah. Presto con fuoco.
Presto con fuoco.
I can't believe it. It's like to fly a jet aircraft.
That's right. Yes.
To play this etude at 77.
And you should have heard him playing it when he was 85.
And
or
I-
even 87.
And I could imagine how he did it when he was 44.
Well, yes.
How many takes do we have of this etude?
I don't, well, only that, I think. Yes, only that one. I mean, I think that that was also recorded, that particular one. Yes.
And I remember one recording from Warsaw, also the same etude.
Yes, which would have been an encore, yes.
Would he
Yes.
practice it at home or just sit and play it?
He wouldn't practice much the things that he was going to play, you know. He loved, funnily enough, even on the days of concerts, to play other things that he wasn't going to play that night. It would somehow get his fingers going, and yet he preferred to come completely fresh.
After 2 etudes, I think now it's a time for a nocturno, a
Yes.
slow nocturno, and we shall see Rubinstein, the noble pianist.
Yes, wonderful.
You know, Annabelle, I'm listening to this playing with wet eyes, and I can say what kind of person was the artist. But sometimes we are sure that this artist was a humanist, the most wonderful human being, and he was not. So how was Rubinstein as a human being? Was he such a wonderful person as it looks in his playing?
I think even more, if one could say such a thing. He was an amazing human being, and I think that it's very strongly linked. The music and the human being are very strongly linked. People often asked how he produced the sound that he produced, which touched your heart. And I think that this was because it was the desire to give, the enormous generosity which he had. And he wasn't really happy unless he was giving, unless he was making other people happy. And that comes out in the playing.
This generosity, I cannot find a better word to describe his sound. And of course, on the screen, you can't realize how wonderful it was in the concert hall. He would just play one sound, and your heart is jumping with happiness. I think that this happiness, inner happiness, to share it with people, was he a happy person?
Well, he used to say that he was the happiest person he knew, and I think this was because he had an amazing philosophy of life, which meant that when he wasn't happy, which of course happened to him as it happens to everybody, he used to take this as a necessary contrast, that when he was happy, he would appreciate it even more, simply because he had suffered. And he suffered a lot. He was incredibly sensitive, which meant that he would suffer if he felt unloved. He needed to be loved very much, and so he could be very easily hurt, and these hurts would remain with him.
You know, this being hypersensitive, you can hear it in playing this nocturno, and also the fact that one is vulnerable, that he can suffer so much on one hand, and on the other hand, remain so noble.
Yes.
This kind of sitting at the piano, the Rubinstein position.
Yes, well, he was totally natural, too, at the piano. I mean, physically, he had these incredible hands with the very long fingers. He was very proud that his little finger was as big as his middle finger, you know, and all this, he was one with the piano, of course.
And this upright position. Do you remember him once sitting like this?
Never, no.
Even in the very old days, remained completely upright.
Yes.
Did you have to help him to read notes when he was older?
He could, no, well, he needed a great deal of light for the last concerts that he did. And when he was going to record chamber music, he was very worried, actually, because he wasn't seeing so well. And so he learnt, you know, the Schubert trios, the Brahms trios, he learnt all the piano parts by heart, so that he wouldn't rely too much on reading the music.
Rubinstein was not only a great player, but a wonderful speaker. We would like to watch him now in a conference, Juilliard School of Music. Questions from the kids, answers from the maestro.
I had always the gift to transmit what I felt very deeply in me. That is very important. Of course, what I was doing was very wrong. You ought to get on your feet, to play the piano, not too much, not the 8 or 7 hours which you do mostly here at the Juilliard School, I think. 3 hours are sufficient. I advise you that. After 3 hours, you become machine. It is no good for piano playing, for music, for anything. Only makes your fingers run. And then the finger runs away without you, you know. I lived in a little pension, a little place, you know, with some people, with nobody else but me, unmusical. They had to look after me, you see. So when I had to practice my 2 or 3 hours in the morning, the first waltz I should play in the afternoon too, but I didn't. I closed the doors, I put a lovely novel on the piano stand. I had in my left some chocolate. With the right, I had some cherries. And I played with the left hand. Read the novel. Oh, no. Then I changed to the right hand, which is still cherries. It was going for 3 hours. The people by left told me, oh, you work today really fantastically. Always the same thing. Oh, wonderful. Well, I had to learn, of course. I had to study. But I will tell you, my study of playing the piano, music, came by and by. And I learned practically everything at concerts, you see. Every concert I've ever given till the last one in my whole life was always a lesson for the next concert. For me. The public, oh, you played, one can't play better, what you did today. I wasn't touched by that because I knew, next time I will not play that theme so quickly. I must give more tone to it. There's a ritardando, which I overdid. There was a the left hand and done and this and that and that. And I did much better the next time. You know, it's very, very funny. Once Picasso, the great painter, I played popular Spanish music to him. You know, pasadobles, things they play at bullfights and so on. And he was quite enthusiastic. Oh, you sound like I saw a bullfight when I heard you play. That was wonderful. How do you do it, this Fritz in Spanish? I said, I don't know. I feel it in the stomach. When I paint, I feel it in the stomach, too.
So some pianists practice the piano 12 hours a day, and he practiced only 3 hours, the rest of the day.
Well, he didn't always practice 3 hours. Sometimes he wouldn't practice at all.
I see.
And he would like to have a nice long breakfast.
What time would he get up?
He would get up fairly late because he used to stay up late.
That's to say 11, 12?
No, before that.
Before that, okay.
Yes. He was usually up by 10 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
Yes. And he would always have a little cup of coffee after breakfast with a nice cigar. And
Already
yes.
For breakfast a cigar?
The cigar would come after breakfast, yes.
Okay.
The first cigar of the day.
Okay.
Yes.
What kind of cigar?
It was a Monte Cristo, sometimes it was a number 2, sometimes a number 3.
A long one?
Yes, and if there wasn't much time, it was a number 4.
Okay. Okay, and then, it's a time for lunch after the cigar?
Yes,
or?
and then there was lunch after the cigar, and there was always, if he didn't have concerts, a lot of listening to music. He would love to listen to chamber music, to opera. Especially late in his life, he would discover chamber music that he hadn't had a chance to listen to earlier on. He had a passion for chamber music.
Of all composers, he preferred to play Chopin, am I right?
Well, he would never say that he preferred to play any of the composers, but he always used to say that Chopin was the ideal composer for the piano, that he wrote for the piano better than any other composer.
And to end our short program, we chose the end of the Concerto No. 2, performed in Warsaw. Chopin in Warsaw by Rubinstein. Wasn't it wonderful? So exciting. We all recall, you know, Annabelle, the famous recording with Andre Previn, which is slightly slower. The coda is slightly slower, and here the full excitement.
But Arik, he was slightly older, you know. In 1975, when he did the Previn, he was 88.
Slightly.
Yes, and there was no public. Here there is a public. It's a live concert. He's back in Warsaw, and he's a little bit younger.
And becoming older, the speech was slowing down, but every word became more meaningful.
I think so, yes. I think, in fact, you know, his last concerts were his best. I think a lot of people will tell you that who were there. And he felt that too. So it was wonderful to finish on a high. His eyesight was failing him. It was more difficult for him to play. But at the same time, the results were amazing.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Lady Annabelle, for being with us. ולצופים שלנו בעברית, אני רוצה לומר שעל רובינשטיין אפשר לדבר ולדבר, לשמוע ולשמוע, ואנחנו נקיים עוד תוכנית על רובינשטיין וישראל, ועל כל הקשרים הנפלאים שלו איתנו. Thank you again.
Thank you.